Hello and a big welcome to part 9 in the series London Bound, our journey from the Midlands down to London and through London. In this episode we start at Cassiobury Park near Watford, but we'll end it just north of the A40 as we approach the outskirts of Uxbridge. Please look out for the Crocodile, the Hanging Monkey, enjoy the train journey and enjoy the film. Thank you very much to everybody who watches, who has watched in the past and subscribed and commented. Please ring the bell for further notifications in this series. Enjoy the film. Thank you very much. So, as I have already mentioned, this journey starts with a trip round Cassiobury Park. We then continue south down the Grand Union Canal through Batchworth and its lock and Springwell Lock, and then after I turn the page we arrive at an area where there were quite a lot of lakes. We pass through Copper Mill Lock and Black Jack's Lock, and then there's a very long straight section through the Harefield area. It is here between Widewater Lock and Denham Deep Lock that the new high-speed rail link is being built across the canal. So it's another beautiful day on our trip down to London on the Grand Union Canal. Thought we'd spend the morning at Cassiobury Park, have a look around there. Lovely large park at Watford. What better than to go on a train ride round the park itself. Well, not all the park, but it's quite a long route on the train ride. I think you're never too well to go on a miniature railway, especially if you like trains. But it does do a very big kind of loop round. This is a view of the traders again at Cassiobury Park. They seem to be having a good morning. Where we spent the night, the boat's leaning over a little bit. We're kind of grounding on one side of the boat, and because of that I've had to push the bow of the boat out a bit and use the gangplank. You can see there the V-shaped cruiser behind us was quite level in the water, but unfortunately being a flat-bottomed boat, our narrowboat being flat-bottomed, we were leaning over. So we moved down the canal a little bit, not very far, just down to above the next lock at Cassiobury Lock. Here there were some moorings and we weren't on the bottom.
We stopped the night there. The next morning, decided to fill up with water before going through Cassiobury Lock. Just coming up to the water point on the right hand side here. There you can see a wide beam that was filling up with water after us. They very kindly went after us because they've got an absolutely huge water tank. Must be twice the size of ours. Then I spotted a boatyard and a diesel pump, so I thought we might as well top up the diesel tanks. I wasn't too sure where you could get diesel in London, and whilst we carry quite a large amount of diesel, I wanted to make sure that we wouldn't run out or get very low at all. So just left the diesel point there. I did ask about a pump out as well, but our pump out fittings were on the side nearest the canal and not on the towpath side, so they didn't want to do a pump out without us turning around. Thought it was a bit dangerous. I suppose it is really. I've been to a few places where they will do a pump out when you have to go across the roof of the boat and kind of stand on the gunnel or lean over to the gunnel edge where the pump out fittings are, but not to worry. It's all very green. Of course it's the summer, of course, but it's amazing how green and not built up at all, the canal, right down to about the Uxbridge area. Just coming up to Common Moor Lock. Lots of interesting boats we pass, all shapes and sizes. Now here I wasn't too sure what was going on with the fiberglass cruiser. Had to slow down and wait. That boat must be using an outboard engine instead of its inboard engine. And we saw one or two like that. And it turned out that this fiberglass cruiser was being towed. Again with another narrowboat who was using an outboard fastened to the side of his stern. Very interesting. So that's two boats two narrowboats with non-working engines, and I presume the cruiser must have a non-working engine as well. Just before we get to the next lock, the Metropolitan line goes across the canal here. There were several places along the canal I wish we'd moored in hindsight. Perhaps this was one of them. Several people either with holiday floating homes or live aboard floating houseboats in this section of the canal. More houseboats. And that one looks quite new, made by riverpod.co. Although some, like this one, looked as though they might have been a do-it-yourself job. And what better use of a pegalo than to clean the outside of your boat on the canal? Another interesting boat on the right hand side there. And some lovely houses as well on the canal side. glad that sign was there because it wasn't quite clear which way to go. But if you did look to your right, you could see the next lock was in front of you, which is Batchworth Lock. Again, another place I'd wish we'd stopped, as there was a pub there. Of course, the Grand Union, with its broad locks, is for wide beam craft. As well as narrowboats. Now we're just coming up to Tesco in Rickmansworth, where we will stop to do a bit of shopping. It's just on the left here. Very, very handy when you want to resupply your boat with supplies. Beautiful old working boat coming past us whilst we were moored there. So we've done our shopping at Tesco. There is a notice saying no overnight mooring. So we moved on, looking for a place to stop the night. We found a place not very far down the canal after shopping at Tesco. Some more interesting boats here. And another one with an outboard engine. Some boats doubly moored. And some with bathtubs on their roof. And somebody having a bath at the same time in the open air. So we stopped for the night. I think we'd just been feeding that swan. And there was a lovely full moon. The next morning, you can see where we were moored. And my wife's just setting off to get the next lock ready, carrying her windlass. And that boat clearly has an outboard as well. Now this next lock, there were quite a lot of old tools and old paddle gear laid out for display. Beautiful lock house. You can see all the marks on the edge of the bridge there where the ropes, when the boats used to be towed along by a horse, the ropes pick up grit, and that eventually wears those marks into the sides of the bridges. Now, I think this was the wide beam that grey one that had been filling up the water when we were back up at Cassiobury Lock. Of course, with a wide beam, you've got a lot more space inside. There was a few sad sunken or partly submerged boats as we travelled along. This is one of them. Now this is an interesting building. It's got a kind of giant monkey hanging off the side. And the remains of what looked like chutes for filling working narrowboats. There's the chute. I'm just zooming up to look at the monkey again. Although it's a bit dark in that picture. Another lovely wide beam boat there. And there is certainly some beautifully kept bridges as you travel along the canal as well. Nice house with a nice mooring at the bottom of its garden. And somebody's got some kind of interesting device to hang on or somehow sit on even and cross the canal on that rope. There's a wide beam working or ex-working narrowboat. Sometimes from the scenery you wouldn't quite believe that we were getting closer and closer to London. There's a few lakes here at the side of the canal. Presume there must have been old workings. And that's a nice place to keep your narrowboats. Another beautiful garden. This is another place I wish we'd stopped. This is a pub here as well. Looks as though there's some community boating there. And a water point. And this is quite interesting. You've got a place for canoes to kind of go in and out of these rods hanging down just where a stream enters the canal. One nice thing about the Grand Union Canal is it's quite wide, and maybe a bit shallow at quite a few places if you get near the edge, but it's quite a nice wide canal, and sometimes feels a bit like you're travelling along a river. Don't know who Black Jack was. And a nice place to moor your boat just off the canal there. With a gentleman doing a bit of rubbing down or painting. And that was a bit scary. Crocodile. I thought at one point it was stuffed and had been fished out of the canal, but I don't think it had. A few sad looking narrowboats on our left as we travel along here. Here's another one looking a bit forlorn. I think it must be missing its ballast as it's quite high up out of the water. Narrowboats tend to be ballasted with either bricks or concrete flagstones or even gravel in their bottoms to weigh them down in the water. We've just come to Wide Water Lock. Good name for an area where the canal is quite wide and you've got lakes at the side. Yes, again, another place I wish we'd stopped. Another handy pub to visit to get refreshment or a meal. Dotted along the canal as you travel are signs saying how far you've travelled from Braunston. That's one of them just there. So another lake at the side of the canal, and the scenery will have changed here a little bit now since we travelled down, because they're building the high-speed railway across the canal here. There you can see how clear the water is and how shallow it is at the edge. Just passing another lake. Now we're going to come shortly to Denham Deep Lock. I know I keep saying this, but it's a place I'd wished we'd stop the night. We actually are going to travel through Denham Deep Lock and moor up for the night, but the moorings certainly were far better above the lock. When you go through the lock, you're getting very close to the A40 road, which is a little bit noisy, and also the towpath at the side isn't quite as nice as it is above the lock. So that's Denham Deep Lock. We've just been through it, and some more interesting boats moored up. So we're going to moor up on the right hand side here. Another boat missing its superstructure and missing its engine. And that's the end of our day 19 travels. So thank you very much for watching, and I do hope you'll see us in the next part of our journey to London. Thank you.